Welcome to the Victory of Vices podcast, brought to you commercial-free by addictionhelp.com. I am your host, Dan Hauser, and our special interview series continues as today I sit down with former NFL safety Doug Middleton. Doug and I talk about his 6-year NFL playing career, his personal struggles with mental health, and his work with Dream the Impossible, a nonprofit mental health organization that targets minority communities. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, welcome back to the show. As I teased in the intro, I'm joined today by former NFL safety Doug Middleton. Doug, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Dan, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's just go right into kind of telling the audience a little bit about you and your background. So you played 6 seasons in the NFL, predominantly for the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars. You had some practice squad stints with a few other NFL teams as well. So in those 6 years of you playing in the NFL, obviously that's a dream come true for not just you, but for so many millions of people out there that watch the NFL religiously every week. What would you, other than just getting to the NFL, what would you consider was your biggest accomplishment and or your proudest moment of your NFL career?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. It was a dream to make it to the NFL. I can just remember being in college and one of my teammates in college at Appalachian State, his dad was a scout for the Panthers. And I remember him coming to a game, towards the end of my senior year. And he was coming to evaluate some guys. And, my name wasn't even on the list of guys that he was really evaluating. And I can just remember, how that made me feel and how much motivation it was to be able to catch the eye of some of these NFL teams. And so I think, just looking back on that moment, I think the proudest moment for me was the first time that I've ever was able to suit up in the NFL jersey, in the New York Jets jersey, in the regular season. My first game being against the San Francisco 49ers, and I think it was like week 13. And I got a chance to play against my college roommate at the time, and he was a 5th-round pick to the 49ers. His name was Ronald Blair. He also ended up playing some time with the Jets. But I would say that's one of my proudest moments. We won that game in overtime. I was forced to go on defense after the first quarter. I think Marcus Gilchrist went down with the torn patella tendon, and we were just on the sideline with my position coach, and he was just kind of showing me a couple plays, and he was like, "All right, you got it." And then I just literally went in and had to make adjustments. But I would say that was my most proudest moment, that I really hang my hat on, all the work that it took to really make it from the practice squad onto the active roster. And then, the most, funnest moment of my career was, I would say, starting Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions in 2018. I had worked extremely hard that entire year, entire camp. And to earn that starting role alongside one of my good friends, Jamal Adams, was a pretty cool thing. And to win in the fashion that we did on Monday Night Football. And it was just a lot of fun. I would say those are 2 moments that I always remember for sure.
So you mentioned your college career at Appalachian State. Obviously, college recruiting, especially in football, is such a major thing. How did you choose Appalachian State? How did you end up going there?
Yeah. I always tell this story. It's not about, how you get your opportunity or how the opportunity comes. It's more about what you do once you get the opportunity. And for me, App State was one of the last opportunities that I got. I mean, I was, going into my junior year, I was looking, at trying to go to a SEC school or ACC school, the big dreams that everybody has. And, that didn't really work out for me. I was going to these camps and a lot of these camps, they were saying that I wasn't big enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't really flexible enough. And, I just kept working and going into my senior year, I didn't have any offers at all. I got an offer from Wofford, maybe in December, and a couple other small schools. And then Old Dominion was the other school that I was kind of close to, making a decision on. But it just kind of came down to, I just kind of repivoted and put all of my attention and eyes on App State once I seen how close it was to home, the winning program that they had, and really just this great school and great atmosphere that they had created. And so, when they gave me that offer really 2 days before signing day, the head coach came down and offered me a scholarship. And my parents didn't want me to go. They were like, why do you want to go to a school that really doesn't even want you? They only want you because nobody else does, And so, for me, I was able to kind of see right through that and just really look at it as an opportunity to really go to this school and what I could do once I got there. And that's what it was about for me. And when I went in, I took the offer and went in and really got to work and ended up being a freshman All-American.
So when you got signed, or
Yeah.
I should say, when you got that offer letter and then
Yeah.
accepted going to Appalachian State, was that the first time when you kind of had that thought of maybe I can actually get to the NFL and turn this into a career, or had that already been something you'd been thinking about in high school?
Yeah, it's always been a dream. When it got really realistic and seemed, that it was possible, was my second game of my college career. We were playing North Carolina A&T, and I got in, towards the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, the quarterback do an out route, and we do the out route, I intercepted it and returned it back for a 97-yard touchdown. And at that moment, I was like, hey, like, if I really work at this thing, man, I could really have a chance. And, small school guy, but I could really have a chance. There were other guys that were getting looks. There was other guys at the school. I think that year, my freshman year, Brian Quick ended up being the 33rd pick of the draft. He was a receiver at App State. And that really gave me that motivation and it showed me that you can come from any school, really doesn't matter. And, I think that play is what really woke me up to saying it's a possibility for sure.
So how old were you when you started getting into football competitively?
I started playing flag football at 6 years old. I mean, I've been playing football my whole life. I always tell this story now because I'm in my second career about how long it took before I actually saw some true success. Being able to get a college scholarship, being able to actually get a check for playing. It was 16 years of really, not 16 years, 11 years of really just working and not really having a lot of a significant reward for it. I mean, you would get great jobs, people would cheer, but when you get a scholarship, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, you're not paying anything for school, and then getting that first NFL check to really say that, hey, like, this is my job. This is more than just a hobby, more than just something I've been playing as a kid for fun. This is something that's pretty seriously. So yeah, I've been playing since I was 6, but a long road for sure.
So not just college, but obviously high school too. I mean,
Yeah.
in the majority of the country, I mean, high school football is as big time as college
Yeah.
and the pros, especially when you look at areas like Florida, Texas, even where you were in North Carolina. So, what were the demands like for you, both physically and mentally, in high school playing football? And then how did that kind of prepare you for then the grind of college ball and then ultimately the pros as well?
Yeah, in high school, man, I look at it, I always felt like I've worked just as hard as I've ever worked. I've always been a tremendously hard worker. I think for me, what changed throughout my career is the access to resources. Let me give you an example. In high school, I was doing drills in my backyard, in my parents' backyard, setting up cones with my shoes. Just doing stuff like that, making the ladder with my shoes, and that's how I would do my footwork drills. Is just in the yard and just different landmarks. Maybe it was a tree, maybe it was a bush over to the left, and that's kind of how I put the work in high school. And then we had a weight room. Didn't really have too many resources, but we had a weight room in high school, and maybe like not like some of those schools in Texas and Florida, but we had everything we needed at the time. And when you get to college, you have even more resources. Now you got protein. Now you got a strength coach that works specifically with football. Now you got a position coach that's always working with you. Now you got other guys that are pushing you as well, and the resources and the access to these resources change. You got a cold tub, you got a hot tub, you got a person stretching, you got a person that's giving you a massage, and just it really just takes it up another level. And I just sometimes it's hard for me to be able to make excuses for guys when they don't want to put in the work because there's just so many resources. There's so many ways, and so many ways to get it done. And in the professional level, once you get there, you can pretty much train hard anywhere. I mean, I'm training in Miami now. It's now you can train and have fun. It's a little bit different. In college, I'm just training at my school and having to stay up on the mountain because that was really the only place that I could get some good work in. But now, once you get to that next level, you're professional. I mean, you can take care of your body and get high level training anywhere in the world. I mean, you might see some guys like Ezekiel Elliott who flies trainers out to Cabo, and they train out there in Cabo when I think he was holding out 1 year or something like that. And there's just so many more, like I said, access to resources and, different things that hyperbaric chambers, chiropractors. There's so many things you can do But the mindset kind of remains the same because, at the end of the day, nothing, everything that's been at stake has been at stake since high school. I've always wanted to make it to the NFL. I've always wanted to make it to college. I've always wanted to make it to getting that second contract. None of that really has changed. It's just my access to be able to carry that out is what changed. I've always had that strong passion for football. Always wanted to work hard. That's the same way I take anything in my life. I always want to put the work in for sure.
I always like to ask these questions of athletes too, just because the dedication and the grind that goes into it is just it's on a whole nother level. Were there ever times when you were growing up, whether middle school, high school, even in college, where you kind of looked around at maybe some of your friends or classmates and was just like, man, I wish I could just be like a regular, normal kid sometimes? Or were you always just like, football, football, let's go do it?
Yeah, no, I was always one of those guys. Of course, I love football, but I love what came with it as well. So for me, being a regular, student, non-student, I just couldn't see myself doing that, man. I really just love, not only the attention that you got, but the brotherhood. I love being able to go to war and go to battle with a lot of guys that come from different backgrounds, different areas than you do, and you all come together for this common goal. There were times where I wish I could have slept in a couple mornings for sure, no problem about that. Or a couple days where I'm going out to camp and wishing like, damn, I'd rather just go home right now. Some stuff like that, but at the end of the day, man, there was nothing I would change for the game of football. The game of football has been so good to me, man, and good to a lot of people that I know. And but just like anything, you want a break. You want to have a breather every once in a while, and I believe we got that at times. And those dog days at camp, there's nothing that compares to that, man. Where how hard and how resilient you have to be during that time. And then, hitting into your last question about mentally, what's changed is just, you just got to be, talent doesn't really get you far in this game. Talent is great in college, in high school, and even maybe your first year in college. But in order to maintain that success, you need to have that mental resiliency. You need to know how to prepare mentally. You need to know how to be able to overcome tough moments, overcome failure at times. And that's what happens at the NFL is that everybody's just so good. It's not like you're dominating like you were in high school. Like every single person you play against, they're getting paid too, and they're getting paid at a high level. And so with that, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get beat. But it's your ability to be able to overcome that mentally and reset and attack the next rep. And some people get too hard on themselves, and you want to have a high standard, but you got to give yourself a little bit of grace along the way.
Yeah, and we've seen it so much more as of late. Obviously we have you talk about your coaches and your performance coaches, your strength and conditioning coaches, but we've seen athletes turn to mental coaches a lot more as of late. And I think that it's obviously it's because they need to stay mentally strong, like you mentioned. But I think too, I don't want to necessarily say admission, but I think it's them realizing that, like what you said, like talent can only take me so far if I don't have it up here to be able to channel it. And we've been seeing, big time athlete, and not just the stars of the stars going and turning into mental coaches to kind of help them, get them over to that next level even.
Well, Dan, you brought up a great point, man. Like I said earlier, talent is only going to get you so far. Everybody's talented. Now, of course, you have a couple guys, like the LeBron James, guys that's just, once in a lifetime athleticism. But I look at it like this, like put this comparison is how I see it stacking up, right? If you have talent, and you're super talented. There was always talented guys in the NFL. And I was always looking and be like, man, like how are these guys not playing 10, 15 years with the talent they have? Talent will get you if you're a first round pick, let's take it like this. You're a first round pick, talent alone will get you 2 to 3 years. All right, talent alone in 2 to 3 years. If you're an undrafted free agent, talent alone will get you maybe a couple weeks in camp if you're an undrafted guy. But if you have talent and hard work as a first round pick, now you're playing that 6 to 7 years, I would say, undrafted guy 3 to 4. But if you combine that talent, hard work, mental resiliency, mental toughness, and also a little bit of luck as well, to stay injury free and stuff like that. But if you add all those things together, that's how you get those double digit careers, like the guys like where you see Mercedes Lewis signing back for 19 years. Like these
Yeah,
guys are on
that's
a whole
crazy.
nother level. Tom Brady playing 20. I mean, the mental discipline and the mental fatigue that these guys have is on another level. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen guys, before a game talking in the mirror to themselves, saying different things to give themselves affirmations, or in between a play, calming down their breath, really locking back in so that they can get from one play to the other, being able to reset mentally and take one play, be able to evaluate what did I do well, what did I do well, forget that, appreciate that, accept it, and move on to the next play in a short amount of time. These guys like operate their mind at such a high level. It's really amazing to watch because you wonder, like, when you see these guys that are so talented and they perform at a high level each and every single week, you know, a lot of us will get comfortable. A lot of us will say, "Oh man, week 6 already had 5 interceptions, 100 tackles. I'm good, man. What's the point of keeping it? Of doing it again next week?" And for them, it's never good enough, right? The standard is never good enough, and so they always want to exceed the standard. You even hear guys like Josh Allen, the outside linebacker who just got paid over $100 million, but his goals are even higher now. Some guys think the opposite way. Once I get paid, now it's time to kind of relax. So it's kind of, I've done my work. I can have a good time. But the guys who really, take this thing to a super high level, really have this mental fortitude is what I call it, to be able to be, mentally savvy and operate at such a high level, that the success is given because of the work that they've put in, mentally and physically. And so, yeah, man, you're seeing guys really appreciate it and really understand it a lot more than they have in the past. Just because it's really a cheat code, man. It really is a cheat code. If you can learn how to look at things with the right perspective, that can really change so much.
You mentioned Tom Brady. I mean, you look at him specifically. He had Alex Guerrero as kind of his guy that went
Yeah,
everywhere with him, and so
everywhere.
I mean, and yeah, I know there was dietary stuff there and some physical stuff too, but you have to believe that somebody being around you like that's got to be somebody who's there too, almost like a golfer with their caddy. You're around somebody that much, you're there to kind of just keep them mentally, there too, or hey, let's talk for
Yeah.
5 minutes because I got something going on that I just need to get off my chest real quick, and then all right, it's right back to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you're seeing that, and then even some of these high level CEOs are starting to understand, as well, like taking the same type of ways that the athletes have had success and putting it in their own life as well. But yeah, man, like when you get to that level, and if you want to get to that level, you even seeing a lot of people coming out about high school athletes, really starting to lock in mentally and understand it because I mean, there's so many things that happen within a career, whether it's injuries, whether it's, you make a mistake or you throw a turnover, you have a turnover, you get beat deep, you get benched. There's a person that beats you. Like there's so many things that if you can't overcome it mentally, it will literally hold you back. And so for me, I credit a lot of my career to the mental fortitude that I had because I was never the most talented guy. I mean, I walked out of college not even getting a look, and it really came down to really knowing and understanding how much difference it was mentally to where I could separate myself and being prepared no matter when the opportunity may come. Being able to take those mental reps no matter if you were in or out, being able to stay ready when you it doesn't look like you may never go in, all those things like that, man. Because yeah, I might be at a practice and the coach may make an example of a guy. You may be sitting on the end of the bench playing around, think you're never gonna get in. He's like, "Oh, Dan, go get in." And you're like, "Oh, well, I didn't know what to do."
Yeah,
And you go in and you make a mistake, you're never getting in again. Or
yeah.
if you go in and take advantage of that opportunity, that opens a lot more doors. I've seen that happen so many times in my career where you look at, a situation and think this guy will never make it. And injuries, the way a person in front of you messes up, and next thing you know, you're the starter. Those things happen. It happens really fast, and so you have to have that mental fortitude to be able to sustain it.
So coming out of college, coming out of App State, you got signed as an undrafted free agent by the Jets. What was that draft weekend experience like for you? Did you think going in that you were gonna hear your name called, or were you kind of prepared to just wait for everything to end and then you'd see who was going to come calling after the draft ended?
Yeah. So I got a couple calls leading up to that day. The only position coach was to call me was Joe Danner from the Jets at the time. He gave me a call and let me know that they were interested. Um, I got a call from a guy with the Eagles that said, director of pro personnel at the time, that said they were, I was pretty high on their board, and that I, had a possible chance of getting drafted. The same thing with the Chicago Bears, and so I never knew how things would kind of fall into place, but I was expecting to get drafted. I went into that day expecting to get drafted on that Saturday, and we're getting towards the end of the draft, and I'm kind of seeing the way it's playing out. Doesn't really look like, it may happen. And then, the Eagles, had that selection. They chose Jalen Mills, and I was like, yeah, after that pick, I knew, that I wasn't going to get drafted, and so at that point, I had to pivot my mindset really quick from being sad and depressed and disappointed that I wasn't drafted to now, okay, what's next? What are the opportunities that may be available for me? And so my agent started to call me. He said, at the time, the Redskins at the time were calling me, and the Jags and Tampa Bay. Those were my three options at the time, right after the draft. And maybe like 5 minutes after the draft, he called me. He said, hey, the New York Jets just called. They said they were sorry for the 5 minute delay, but they really have you really high on their board, and they want to bring you in. And I was like, of course. That was growing up. The Jets were my dream team. I was a big, huge Darrelle Revis fan. Had really loved Rex Ryan at the time, and so I was excited to get that opportunity. And so we celebrated that night with some family and friends, and we went into Charlotte and had a great time. I was living in Winston-Salem at the time. And I can just remember how excited I was just to accomplish this lifelong dream and really just get to work and have this opportunity. And I can just remember that first day showing up that first day and just looking around at practice, looking around the facility in the middle of practice. And then my coach was just like, Joe Dana was like, man, like pretty much get your head out of your ass. Like, it's time to go to work. Like I was, still just kind of daydreaming type of thing. Couldn't believe that, that I had accomplished this lifelong dream. So yeah, that's how draft night was, man. It was disappointing at first, but just like we just talked about with that mental fortitude, being able to pivot and say, what's next? Okay, even though I didn't get drafted, that's not what I wanted, but I still have some opportunities. How can we, bring some clarity to this and find the best opportunity that can work and give me my best chance at getting a shot?
So the draft to me is something that's truly fascinating, because unless you are like the overall consensus, everybody's known for 6 months you are going to be the number one pick, kind of like Caleb Williams was. Like everybody knew, there was no question he was going number one, so there was nothing he had to think about, worry about, sweat. It was just like you just had to basically count down until the clock ran out. Yeah. But for everyone that's not that pick, for me it's you go through all these emotions of stress, anxiety, worry, wondering, God knows what's going through your mind at that point. And then it crescendos to your name gets called in theory, or you get the call from a team or whatever. And then you kind of feel that relief and like, all right, it's time to get to work. But whether it was you in the case of you had to wait to get the call after the draft ended, or even some of these guys, who may get called first round, second round, whatever, the mental toll that's got to take the day before, leading up to it. I mean, can you kind of maybe describe and explain a little bit of what that's like for the audience out there? Because to me, like, I feel like unless you've sat through it, you don't truly understand like what the range of emotions that happens throughout the day is like.
Yeah, it's not only the day, man. It's really that whole process. Like, to be honest, I dated back to my entire senior year. I went into my junior year possibly being, third, fourth round pick. I remember agents coming down to me and just kind of reiterating that I had a chance to make it to the next level. Going to my senior year, and I start the first two games, play against Clemson. I had one tackle through those first two games, and really every agent, every scout kind of X me off the boards because the biggest game of my pretty much my career against Clemson, I have one tackle, and not really showing a lot. When App State doesn't really get a lot of time to play against bigger level opponents. At that point, I can just remember being as tied up mentally as I've ever been in my life. During those couple weeks in my senior year. Just so much stress, so much uncertainty about what the next level will look like, if I could make it. If teams were still had me on their list, what the process would look like, where I would go, if I would even get selected, if I'm even going to have a chance to make it to the NFL, if my senior year is even going to go the way I want. It's just so many things that's going through, and I've seen so many guys, through their senior year really struggle because it's tough, man. It's you're living in a whole year of uncertainty, and you're just juggling through these, just do everything week to week, and I can just remember reaching a breaking point around like week 9 of my college career, my senior year, and I got ejected from a game after for targeting, and I just went to the locker room and just broke down crying, and I just at that point I just didn't know what was next, and I didn't even know how to accept it. Um, and from there, I just kind of went into the mindset of like, really leaning more into my faith with God and just knowing that, hey, like if he's, taking me up to this point, then he'll be able to carry me through. And that's what got me through the rest of my senior year. And then I went down into Miami to train because I knew that I need to get away and just hit a total reset. I need to know, like, lock in and do whatever I need to do to make it to this next level. And I did that. And I came back from my pro day ready, confident, killed it, killed the entire process. And then you lead up to draft day, and you go to draft day, and leading up to that process, you're getting calls from some teams. You're seeing on Twitter that some teams are bringing in guys for visits, or some teams are meeting with their coordinators, or some teams are having guys for private workouts. And I didn't get any of that stuff, and so all that is just kind of beating you up mentally. And then I didn't go to the combine, so it's a lot of, you have to overcome so much failure that you play in your mind, so many games that you play in your mind mentally, and then actually watching a draft, seeing guys that you've went through the process with, or guys you've been competing with against your whole career. Those guys get selected before you, or certain teams call you saying that they were interested, and they choose other guys at that position. It's tough. It's hard, man, because you're seeing everything you work for just kind of flash before your eyes, and not really sure if you're going to have the chance to continue it. And so with so many emotions that was filled with that day, sadness, disappointment. But at the end of the day, it ended up being one of the best days of my life. And the story really came together. And I just extend some gratitude towards my faith, and just being able to keep going and overcome those challenges.
That mental toll that
It's a lot,
players
man.
go through. Do you think that has anything to do with why we're starting to see more and more, even amongst the top of the top guys? Like Caleb Williams didn't go to the draft. Like a lot of these guys now, they're skipping actually going to the draft site. Instead, they'll do, their draft parties at their house or wherever it is, because if it's easier for you to get up and take a walk, or if you do end up having that like Aaron Rodgers like type fall, you don't have a camera like pointing on you, like zoomed in on your face the whole time. Do you think that it's just these athletes are starting to say like some things just aren't worth the mental strain anymore? Like if I can just sit, obviously COVID kind of introduced us to the fact that you can do things more virtually now, but is it also that, athletes now saying like, it's just not worth the pomp and circumstance and the mental everything to like have a camera shoved in my face the whole time. Let me just do this at home with my parents and my friends and my family, and just try to be as calm as I can about everything.
I think it's more or less the second point you said. Just being able to share one of the best moments of your life with all of your family and friends. If you look at, Xavier Legette, receiver that just got drafted to the Panthers, he had his whole town, at the town
Yeah.
hall together when they watched the draft. Like, I mean, these are one of the best moments of your life, and to get that, to share that with all of your family and friends, and not just a select group, is really, I think, really truly what it's all about. Of course, you do have those situations where, sometimes it does end in some disappointment, and you never know where you're going to get drafted, when you're going to get drafted, how you're going to get drafted. And you've seen some of like the Lamar Jackson situation, him and his mom just kind of sitting there all night. Of course, those are some things that can be, can take a shot at your pride at times. And I think, really it's truly giving the power back more to the players, and I think it's all about players just wanting to spend more time in this moment with their family and friends. I think that's what I will point to it. But yeah, I mean, going and showing up to something like that, and not getting the outcome you want, is tough mentally. It is. It really is.
So staying on the topic of kind of the mental fortitude and being able to adapt and jump on the fly and kind of rechannel everything. you talked about your 2017 season. Obviously, you had a really good start to that 2017 season. You also suffered a season-ending injury that year. What was that like for you, especially when you talk about how you were starting to come into things were starting to click, you were getting a lot of playing time, and then you suffered that torn pectoral muscle. So kind of take me through that. What was that like for you as far as when it happened, then everything that you need to do with the rehabbing to try to get back to that level again?
Yeah. That 2017 season was probably it was hard, but the 2018 season is even harder, and I'll tell you why. So 2017, I'm coming off my rookie year. Started practice squad on my rookie year, worked up to the active roster by week 13. Going into 2017, we drafted two safeties that year, Jamal Adams and Marcus May. Traded Calvin Pryor, and I was still able to find my way kind of in the rotation to start the preseason. And I'd been working extremely hard that entire preseason. 2 weeks before that, preseason started, I lost my best friend to suicide as well before then. And so once that preseason started, I'm going down for a punt play against the Tennessee Titans and make a great play in the preseason. And I tore my right pec. And at that moment, I kind of hit rock bottom, where I had this injury and I had lost my best friend at the same time. I can still remember, kind of just being in the locker room, tearing up in the Jets locker room. And once I found out that I was going to be out for that year, but I was able to pivot really quickly, actually instantly. I remember also walking out that locker room and walking through the indoor and just saying to myself, like, how can I make this a positive? How can I take advantage of this opportunity that I have injured to do something quality with this time? And so I decided to go back in school and finish my master's degree. So I went back in school and went back to North Carolina, had my surgery down here, and Coach Bowles allowed me to finish my degree at App State. So I did that. And then I returned my next year for 2018, healthy, confident, ready to really go take the job. And, I was able to earn the starting job in 2018 and started a few games. And then that week 7 games after starting against the Minnesota Vikings was another punt play on the opposite side of the field, same stadium, and go down and make a tackle, and I tear my left pec. And at that point, it's probably the most beat up mentally I've ever been because now, I've torn both pecs back-to-back years. I've done a lot of work to overcome and battle back, through this injury, which took a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of, just training mentally and physically to be able to rehab and overcome this injury. And yeah, man, like the battle was tough. The battle was really tough. And, I was able to battle back and I worked back through it. But one thing I would say that, a few things that helped me get through it, faith for sure. Faith is one thing. The next thing I tried to look at people who had been through similar stories, similar journeys as me. Another guy that was going through at the same time was Brandon Copeland. He had 2 pec injuries. Another guy who has struggled with shoulder injuries, Drew Brees. I read his book during my rehab, and I credit that a lot of the way to how I got through mentally, just seeing the stuff that he had went through, with the doctors and the charges and this and that. And his story is really what helped me through my process. And so just really looking to other people for help, man, looking for community, looking for comfort, looking for ways that I could see myself working my way out of this situation. You have to see it before it happens, and you have to think before you can actually do it. And I knew that no matter how many injuries I had, I could overcome them and still keep fighting, and that's what I did.
That Drew Brees one, that's an interesting as a Dolphins fan. That one is particularly interesting to me. I mean, the whole reason why Dante Culpepper ended up being the quarterback here for Nick Saban and not Drew Brees was because they didn't think that Drew Brees' shoulder would ever be able to come back to where it was. And so they ended up taking Dante Culpepper and his surgically repaired knee over Drew Brees and his shoulder. And, I try not to think about it too much because it's still painful to this day when you see what Drew Brees went to do and then you look at what happened with Culpepper and the Dolphins.
You never know.
Yeah, you never. But it's a prime example of you're saying like look at somebody like that. Even his own doctors didn't think he would ever really be able to come back from that, and obviously he did. So you never know with the right you put the effort in, you keep mentally positive, and you try to
Never
see
know.
what you can do.
You never know, man. And I remember reading this book at some tough times where, I may have had a tough rehab day, or I may have had a setback, and just reading through some of those chapters, some of those pages is what gave me hope. It what gave me, the courage and encouragement to keep going. And so, yeah, man, those times were tough, man. Being alone in that training room, and some days it just seemed like you're doing the same exact movements every single day and not really seeing much progress. But you just keep at it. You just keep at it, and that's what I did, and it ended up working out. But yeah, the injuries were extremely tough, extremely tough.
Did you ever have days while you were rehabbing or when you're in that training room where you just kind of thought to yourself, I made it here already. I accomplished my goal. I'm just gonna hang it up. Like I'm out. Like, well, let's go figure something else out to do now. Or
Yeah. I remember texting Marcus May in 2018 after I tore my pec the second time. They had just texted me, checking on me, and I sent them a text back like, "Bro, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, I just want to be done." And that's truly how I felt, man. I just wanted to be done. I didn't want to play football anymore because it just felt like I didn't feel like I could get myself up again mentally for it. After going through everything I've already been through, and I felt like I wanted to just give up. And so I took a step back for a little bit, and had the surgery, and settled down, and convinced myself that I could do it again, and I did, and still ended up playing another 3 years. But yeah, it was hard, man. It was extremely hard for sure.
so, like you said, you did come back. You played for a couple more years. As
Yeah.
your playing career was starting to wind down, because obviously, by this point, you've literally spent your entire life, for the lack of playing football. Like you said, started from the age of 6.
Yeah.
Were there times when you were getting towards the end of your playing career where you kind of sat down and were just like, all right, football is all I've ever really known. Now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, for me, I've had it, because I've had so many injuries. I've always had some time to kind of think about what was after football. Um, and so I always challenge guys to make sure you take a pause in the off season or anytime you get injured, and be appreciative of those pauses that you may have in your career, because it gives you a chance to really think about who you are outside the game of football, because it is something that you've been doing your whole life. And so we never truly think about what's next until, what's next presents itself, which is once we're done. And so for me, always thinking about, small things that I could do, with my life and my career, besides just football. And so I was doing internships in the off season. I was meeting people, networking and doing stuff like that. It's crazy to think I was doing all those things, but none of that has anything to do with what I'm doing now. But I think just that well versed of experience of just talking to so many people, doing so many different things, is what brought me to this moment where I am now. And so, yeah, man, it's just you really gotta really open your mind, and be curious about other things, because football does not last forever. It's easier said than done, but it doesn't last forever.
I think it's important to note too that you mentioned like a Tom Brady who played for 20 years, or a Mercedes Lewis who just going on 19 years now. Um, it's important to note that those are the exceptions. I think what the average NFL career, I think I saw, is about 3 years. So you think about you know dedicating your whole life to this, and then it lasts a couple of years, and then most of these guys, they're still you know not even 30 yet, and now it's like, okay, now I got to start my second life. And so I think because for the average person that watches football or watches sports or whatever, they see the LeBrons and the Bradys, and they think, okay, yeah, these guys are playing for Peyton Manning's, they're playing for 20 years, they're making hundreds of $1 millions, and when they're done, they can just be done, and they can go sit on their yachts and vacation for the rest of their life. They don't have anything they have to do. But like, that's not
Reality.
yeah,
That's not
exactly. That's not reality for most of these guys.
reality.
They're 30 and they're having to figure out what they're going to do for their second life now.
Yeah, that transition is extremely hard, and you hit at it. I mean, the average for NFL careers is 3 to 4 years. So you don't really play that long, and you're forced to make a lot of decisions, establish a new life, establish a new identity. Um, at a really young age, and so yeah, retirement does not look the same for everybody. Some people have to go straight to work. Some people can can kind of sit around for a little bit. Some people will never work again, and it looks totally different for everybody. But I think, one thing that I can say is consistent is that you have to be able to identify yourself more than just a game of football. You have to be able to bring more value to the world than just football, because if that's the only thing you can depend on, those things change. Football is not forever. And when those things change, you don't want to feel like you've lost a ton of value, or you don't want to feel like, you don't have an identity because you aren't playing football anymore. And so that's the key of just finding things that you're passionate about outside of the game, and being able to still give that same attention to the game while you're playing, but still be curious about some of these other things in the off season.
So going back, I know you touched on it when you were talking about your 2018 season. You mentioned losing your friend AJ Morse, and I know you've spoken a lot and been very open about it. Since, but just for those who may not be familiar, can you just kind of maybe share a little bit with the audience who AJ was, your relationship with him, and kind of everything that unfortunately played out there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Me and AJ grew up since the age of 6 together in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We were best friends, lived pretty much across the street from each other. He played football and track, and I did the same thing as well, all the way up through high school together, friends since the age of 6. And yeah, we were just two passionate athletes about, football and track, and just trying to push each other to make it to the next level, make it to college. And so we both made it to college as student athletes. And, I ended up being able to make it to the NFL, and AJ's career finished up a little bit, before mine. And so, the transition can be tough for a lot of us, right? Transitioning, finding an identity outside the game, it can be really hard. And so I have a lot of respect for my own transition, and for other guys who are looking to make that transition as well, because you start off, you end so high, you end at a high level, whether you played 2 years, 3 years, you end at the NFL, which is the highest level, or even college, which is the second highest level, which many people don't even make it to play that level. And now once you're done, you're forced to start over from the bottom, in a new category and a new thing. And so that can be tough, and so AJ struggled with severe depression, and that was something that he battled with. And so, he lost his fight with severe depression in 2017. And when we lost him, I always ask myself questions about things that I could have done better, more education that I could have had. And so I spent these last few years just trying to be better, trying to allocate more resources, trying to be more knowledgeable, and really trying to connect more youth, to being more aware of their mental health. And so, athletes struggle. We really do, man. We have to perform at a high level in front of a lot of people, and everything we do is in a microscope. And so, with that success comes a lot of scrutiny, and it doesn't go as well over with everybody. And so, the key is just trying to make sure that we establish community, make sure that we establish a place for these athletes to go to get the healing that they need. And so, yeah, that's kind of what went down with my friend AJ, and a lot of things that I do in my life right now are meant to honor him and keep his name alive. And so I feel like I've done a good job at that the last couple of years. And we also felt that his story has been able to help a lot of other youth and student athletes as well.
So unfortunately, a lot of people, when they are struggling like that, they internalize it. They try to keep it. You can't always tell when you're around them if something's going on. What was that like for you being around AJ? Did you know something was going on with him, or was it just kind of was it a quick deterioration? I mean, what was it like for you to be around him kind of as he got worse?
Yeah. I knew he was struggling. Yeah, I knew he was struggling. I knew he was going through it. I knew that. And, seeing him struggle, just trying to find the right resources, find the right people that could help him was the toughest part. And in the African-American community at the time, there wasn't a lot of good people in this, in this space, at that time when he passed. And so there's been more resources that, the NFL has put together, that other leagues has put together as well, to help these players know the resources that are out there. But, it just felt like I couldn't find him the help that he needed. And that was the hardest part, not being aware of what all was out there, not even really being truly aware of what all was going on. But, he vocalized pretty well that he was struggling. It wasn't one of those situations where, there are a lot of times where you don't know the person is going through, you don't know the person struggling, they internalize it a lot. His situation was a little different. We knew he was struggling, we knew he was going through it. It was just more or less of trying to find the help he needed, and that is what we couldn't find. So, that's why I'm so big on being available, being here, being present, being around guys, just in case, because you never know when somebody may need something, or somebody may have a question, a thought, or just need to talk to somebody through something.
You mentioned wanting to do things now to honor him, to continue to raise awareness. You are obviously doing that in a big way with Dream the Impossible. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Dreaming the Impossible and
Yeah.
what you all do there?
Yeah, for sure, man. So we started Dream the Impossible in 2017, and since then we've impacted over about, I'll say, almost 10,000 youth, and we do a lot of different events to help athletes, student athletes, become more aware about their mental health and also get connected to resources. Um, our biggest event is now, I think this year is year 4, our 4th annual You're Not Alone 707. With the 707, we'll bring about 200 and 250 student athletes together, and we'll talk about mental health. I think this year we're adding yoga, and we're just going to help them be more mindful and present. A lot of these skills that you're starting to see that we talked about, that some of these high level athletes use, you could see, I think it was Justin Fields who talked about taking breaths and meditation in the middle of timeouts and stuff. And LeBron James, you always see him in between a big play, kind of calming himself, helping them understand some of these small skill sets that can help them just really maximize their potential. That's all I want these guys to do. Is we're all not blessed with the same talent, but if we can maximize our potential, maximize the talent we've been given, and include some hard work with that, the sky's the limit. And so that's our goal, is to help them through that, mindful movement, and then education, and then doing a series of events throughout the year in which we bring awareness to that. And so we've been doing this for the last 7 years, and just a few events a year, and then as well, speaking across the country, speaking in schools, speaking everywhere about AJ's story, and about how to be more of a mindful athlete.
So, how is Dream the Impossible starting the organization and everything you do with it? How has that kind of helped you in your own journey as far as like your post playing career life has gone?
Man, it's helped a lot, because I was born a server. I love to serve people. That's just my life, man. And anytime I can give back and help the youth and help these younger athletes, it helps me stay connected to the game. It helps me stay connected to the game. It helps me stay in the know, and then it helps me because a lot of these things that I've been through. At times you may think you're the only one that ever may go through it, and you see that was all for a reason, because now I can help another student athlete navigate their own situations. And so, that's the best part about it, is when you see some of these situations that I've been through and that they're going through now kind of pop up twice. And now you're able to guide them through it, and knowing what after going through your situation.
So I know one of your main focuses with Dreaming the Impossible is to bring awareness to minority and African American community. Why the focus on those minority or underserved communities?
Yeah. For me, the one thing that I start out with is number one, AJ was a minority. That's the first thing. The second thing is that um, you know, minorities, just based on statistics, minorities tend to come from tougher communities, tougher situations where some of the things that these kids may be battling through may be a lot different than just performance issues, right? They may have family issues going on at home. They may not have a father that's present. They may have some built up trauma, and a lot of these issues can be worked through. A lot of them can be, and a lot of these issues can also hold these athletes back from maximizing their potential. I mean, there's so many athletes that you see just walking around these neighborhoods that should have had a chance to at least play at the college level, maybe not the NFL, but at least be a good college athlete. And maybe it didn't happen because of something that a mistake that got in the way, And so that's why I like to prioritize that community, because number one, I know it. I know some of the things that my friends were going through. I've seen kids that I've grew up with who were way more talented than me, way more talented, that looked just like me, that never even got anywhere close to the level that I got. And so that was the most frustrating part, is seeing them not be able to maximize their potential because of a mistake, because of something that's gotten away mentally. And, that is my motivation. And that's why I do what I do. But, yeah, communities of color is a big focus for me, because that's just something I live and breathe every single day. And also, I'm very familiar with these issues that the kids that come from these communities are dealing with.
So with all your experience now in the mental health field and everything you're doing, what are some things that you think that as a society we could all be doing to help, whether it's reduce the stigma of mental health or help within our community with those who may be struggling that may not feel comfortable asking for help? What are some things that we all as a whole can do to kind of help continue the path forward to help kind of destigmatize the negatives of mental health?
Yeah, if I could think, what we need the most is more community. I mean, we need more community. We need more ways to establish these communities. Even if you look at just something as common as like Jets fans and how they have a community of each other, right? We need more communities. I mean, people struggle when they're in idle, when they feel like they're alone, they have idle time, they feel like they don't have connection to other people. That's when we struggle. And so, the more ways that we can create community, the more ways that we can create accountability within each other, is ways that I think we can solve this issue. Of course, having more vulnerable moments within those communities, being able to have vulnerable discussions, being able to have somebody that you can just pick up the phone and talk to. I think, when we were younger, it was a lot easier. You're in high school or you're in middle school, you're going with those kids to school every single day. You can just talk to your friends, or you're in college, you live in the same dorm room as a lot of your boys. And then you get into the real world. Life happens. Now your college roommate is 500 miles on the other side of the country. Now your college roommate has 3 kids, and he don't have really a lot of time to go see you or get connected with you. And a lot of these relationships kind of fade, and a lot of these relationships are harder to keep up with. And so that's what I mean about more ways to find and keep community, because that's what we need to thrive. Is we need each other. We need friends. We need family. We need somebody that values us. We need somebody that care about us. And that's how you solve it. And so all these things that you're seeing, whether it's people that's coming out trying to break down the stigma, or people that's coming out trying to share what they've been through, it's all to establish community, right? It's all to establish. If I come out and vulnerable about my story, now you feel more connected because you know AJ's story. You may not, you may know somebody that's struggling. It may be a similar situation, but you can find comfort, and you can find something that's similar within my story that brings us together. And so that's what it's all about. I think, what's tough, especially through times like this, especially this year in general, is election time. It's like, you kind of pull those communities apart because of, these issues that divide people and these candidates that divide people. And so it gets really hard because now the community seems to be farther apart when we go through years like this and we go through turmoil. So, just being able to find more community is what I'm a believer of. I've always preached that. And when I do my camps, I like to bring a lot of kids together. Look to your left, look to your right. These guys are going through the same stuff you're going through. You're going along the same journey, and being able to do this together. And so that's what I'm all about with my yoga studio. We preach community every single day. I know my members. I know my people. I hold them accountable. I know their names. I know their families. And I just try to serve as much as I can.
Is there a specific story you have or something specifically that happened with Dreaming the Impossible that was particularly powerful, or that had a particularly powerful impact on you as it was happening?
Only thing I got a lot of stories. A lot of good stories, a lot of ways that people have felt impacted. I think the biggest one is the more and more I go speak to colleges, college football programs, different colleges, the more and more I step on campus, and guys that I talk to have been through one of my camps. And that's probably the coolest thing ever. It's like, I went to Lenore Ryan, a small D2 school, and spoke there. And it's 6 kids walking up to me. It was like, man, I don't know if you remember me, but I've been to some of your camps. I've been to some of your mental health camps. I've been to your 707. Or I get to West Virginia, and I'm seeing guys that's been through our program, like Lee Cabot, a guy who was a starter at West Virginia, who was at one of our first programs ever, with our foundation. I think those are the coolest moments, is seeing those guys develop, seeing those guys become healthy, mindful athletes, and that's the coolest part about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Doug, thank you. I can't thank you enough again for coming on and talking with us today. Obviously, Dream the Impossible. What you guys are doing is truly amazing. Also, just to hear your perspective as far as kind of peeling back the curtain, so to say, and seeing what a lot of people don't know when it comes to what you all as athletes just go through on a daily basis to be able to make it look so easy when we're watching it on TV, you know? So thank you so much again for coming on with us.
And Dan, I appreciate you. Thank you for creating this platform, creating this community, and creating this opportunity. So thank you.
That will do it for today's show, though. Thank you so much to everyone for joining me, and we'll talk to you again on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.